Our top story at this hour. Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin has been listed in Russian plane crash with no survivors. Prigozhin, who previously operated in the shadows, came into the spotlight during Russia's offensive in Ukraine, launched in February of 2022. The crash comes 2 months after Prigozhin launched a short-lived rebellion, seen as the biggest challenge to Russian President Putin's authority since he came to power. Russia's Ministry for Emergency Situations on Wednesday announced the crash of a private plane traveling between Moscow and St. Petersburg. According to initial information, all 10 people on board died, including 3 crew members, the ministry said. Russia's aviation agency later said the Wagner chief was on board. Russian authorities also listed Dmitry Utkin, a shadowy figure who managed Wagner's operations and allegedly served in the Russian military intelligence. Russian aviation agency said it set up a special commission to investigate the crash of the aircraft. Russia's investigative committee, which probes serious crimes, said it opened an investigation into the crash. Embraer said it was aware of the crash in Russia involving a Legacy 600 aircraft, but it did not have further information and had not been providing support services for the jet since 2019. The Brazilian plane maker stated it has complied with the international sanctions imposed on Russia. Sanctions block Western aircraft manufacturers from providing parts or support for planes operated in Russia. Putin was meanwhile giving a speech for the 80th anniversary of the Kursk battle in the World War II. He did not mention the crash and hailed the soldiers for fighting bravely and resolutely in the special military operation in Ukraine. Kyiv and Washington reacted swiftly to initial reports of the crash. Biden told reporters while leaving a spin class in California that he doesn't know what happened with Prigozhin and that he was not surprised by the reports though. Here's what the US president said.
I don't know for a fact what happened, but I'm not surprised.
Do you think Putin is vulnerable?
There's not much that happens in Russia that Putin's not behind, but I don't know enough to know the answer.
Ukrainian presidential aide Podolyak said the plane crash was a signal from Putin to Russia's elites ahead of the 2024 elections. Beware, disloyalty equals death. The exile leader of the opposition of Belarus said Prigozhin would not be missed in her country. Yevgeny Prigozhin was a Kremlin confidant before he turned his troops on Russia's capital. Before Putin, who accused Prigozhin of treason, ordered troops to Ukraine, the Wagner boss dispatched fighters from his private force to conflicts in West Asia and Africa. However, he always denied involvement. Well, that changed last year when he announced himself as the founder of the Wagner Group and began a mass recruitment drive at Russia's prisons for foot soldiers to fight in exchange for an amnesty. Prigozhin was locked in a bitter, months-long power struggle with the defense ministry as his ragtag forces spearheaded the costly battles for limited gains in eastern Ukraine. He began blasting what he said was systemic mismanagement and lying in the Russian defense ministry. He had earlier accused the Russian military of trying to steal victories from Wagner and slammed Moscow's monstrous bureaucracy for grinding progress on the ground. Then in June, Prigozhin ordered his private fighting group to unseat Russia's top brass in Moscow. His forces captured key military headquarters in the city of Rostov-on-Don in southern Russia before setting their course for Moscow, where authorities beefed up security in anticipation of a showdown. The evil that the military leadership of the country brings must be stopped, Prigozhin announced after claiming the defense ministry had launched strikes on Wagner bases. The aborted bid ended with Putin ultimately offering exile in neighboring Belarus to mutineers and Prigozhin. In July, a video on Telegram channels linked to the Wagner mercenary group appeared to show its boss Yevgeny Prigozhin is in Belarus. He was seen welcoming fighters and describing developments on the front line in Ukraine as a disgrace. After that, the Wagner boss was spotted in Russia during Africa's summit. Prigozhin appeared in the footage this week following vowing to make Africa freer and suggested he was on the continent.